Hello YouTube, this is Frugal, and today I will be taking a look at the much loved A2A Simulations 172, Cessna 172 trainer with AccuSim. This is a phenomenal product and very, very important on a number of levels. Let me just look around the outside of the aircraft first, just to show you what the model looks like, then we'll get into the detail on this. The interesting thing about this, and the reason I think a lot of people would not be interested in this, is it's just a Cessna. There are a number of companies doing Cessnas. Coronado is probably the best known. They make some phenomenal Cessnas, and they've kind of built an entire business out of making Cessnas. So for A2A to jump into the mix with a Cessna is a little bit brave in that they're taking on somebody like Coronado, but also brave in that they decided to model the 172. If you have had any flight training at all, you have probably flown this aircraft for real, or its baby brother, the 152. I've spent some time in this, a couple of hours in this, and it's an interesting aircraft to try to simulate because so many people have real-world experience with it. They can tell you for certain whether it feels right or not right. Now, A2A have a number of tricks up their sleeve with this aircraft, which we're going to get into in a second. The big ace that A2A Simulations have up their sleeve is, of course, AccuSim. Now, a lot of developers will take an aircraft and they'll kind of approximate it. And for most of us simmers, we really wouldn't know the difference between the approximation and a real thing. A2A go very much beyond that. Rather than just approximating and saying, well, if the throttle is at this and the pitch is at this and the temperature is at this, the aircraft should respond this way, they actually simulate the moving components of the aircraft, in particular the engine, the combustion engine. Now, that's quite a sweeping, broad statement, which doesn't really go into the level of detail that A2A does. A2A will simulate the fuel mixing with the oil, igniting, forming the combustion process, and pistons moving and compressing and expanding within the chambers, how the spark plugs respond, whether the spark plugs would foul, and so on and so on and so on. More to the point, I mean, what they've done with this now is they've actually entered into sponsorship with a number of manufacturers of things like spark plugs, like oil, like tires, to accurately simulate the various different types of oil and the various different performances of certain types of spark plugs. So one of the things they mention in their manual is that you'll get real-world pilots of this having a chat in the local bar about, well, what do you find is the best oil to use in very cold conditions or very warm conditions, and what about this spark plug? Those same conversations can be applied to this aircraft as well. You can actually experiment yourself to find out which oil viscosity, which octane of fuel work best in what conditions based on where you fly, when you fly, and all that kind of stuff. That's how deep they've gone to, and there's way more on top of that as well. Let me start walking through some pop-up screens. If you're familiar with A2A, you know that they have a lot of these overlays that come up. So Shift 2 gives you this one. This is the pilot's notes. So it gives me a summary at the bottom of the screen about how to prime the engine for a cold start, what my ground speed currently is, what my endurance with the current fuel load is. And I can click on a button here and go through pages, so I can actually work through checklists here if I want to. Nothing unusual. That is very standard A2A Simulations. I love it. It's great. I can get rid of that. If I bring up Shift 3, that gives me some very handy links which do things to the aircraft. So I can put the yoke back in. You notice there are no yoke in here, or there actually are yoke in there. If I get in the cockpit, I've actually got the yoke turned off. I can remove the wheel chocks here. I can remove the tie downs here. So let's remove the chocks, remove the tie downs. Let's close the doors now. So left door, right door. So I can close the doors. I can turn on the fuel pump, the pitot heat. I can even put, now this is very important, I can put an engine warmer on this aircraft. Now, let me see if I can find that. Engine heater, there it is. So I can apply the engine heater if I want to. It's not going to let me, I'm not sure why. Probably because I'm not chocked up and I'm not tied down. Nope, okay, not sure why I can't do that, but you can apply an engine heater, and that's very important because what they've done with this, with the AccuSim thing, is the aircraft is a living thing even when you're not flying. So if you have a nice long trip, say a 3-hour flight, 4-hour flight, land it, and then tie it down, shut it down, put the tie downs in, put the chocks in, and then walk away for 3 months. When you come back, you are accessing this, you are seeing the aircraft as it is in 3 months' time from when you last left it. So the engine might be difficult to start. If the weather has deteriorated since you last flown, that can affect engine start, and also the viscosity of the oil and stuff like that. So you can apply an engine heater and take better care of your engine when you're not in the aircraft. So when you come back, it's easier to start and just taking better care of it, which is very cool. Shift 4 brings up this. This is the dynamic load balancer. You can see I've got a little bit of fuel in the left and right tanks. I can increase that dynamically now. I can unbalance the aircraft if I want as well. I can put passengers in, I can change their weight, put the baggage in, and basically handle all the loading of the aircraft this way, which is Kind of cool, but again, nothing amazing. Shift 5 is a compass or a map navigation view. We won't use that, that's a cheat. Shift 6 gives you quick access to the radios. Again, we're not going to use that, that's a cheat. Now the fun starts. Shift 7 gives you access to the maintenance hangar. Now this is where I was talking about the sponsorships that they have. So we've currently got Air Track tires in here. I can switch those over to Air Hawk, and the tires will accurately simulate Air Hawk versus Air Track tires. That's pretty cool. I can change the battery from an RG2411 to an RG2415, and again, the life of the battery, the durability of the battery, how it performs, how it handles the start will all flow in here. It's very neat. I can go and look at the engine. Look at this. So I'm using Victory 100 AW straightway oil. I'm using Champion massive wire spark plugs. I can change those. So I can go fine wire. Let's try those. I can change the oil viscosity. So let's say I don't really want the Victory 100 AW in there. I can maybe go for XC Aviation 20 watt 50. Sorry, 20W50. 20 watt, what am I saying? See how that works. I can do a compression test on my engine, which is not unusual with A2A aircraft. We've always been able to do that. But now I can see how the compression responds with these elements added in. So run a compression test. Pretty good. Got somewhere on number 2 and number 3, but overall looking nice. Let's get rid of that. I can put the engine heater kit in here, remove it, add it. That's where the engine heater is actually being added there. I can install and remove flap seals. I've currently got them installed. They are hard to see, but they basically improve the airflow when you're deploying flaps and movable surfaces back here. I can remove fairings off the front wheel, and that, or the main wheel, that will affect as well the aerodynamics of the aircraft, how it handles in the air, obviously. Nose wheel fairing. I can put the main ones on, leave the nose off. I can put the nose on, leave the main ones off. The variation that you have here is phenomenal. I can even change the propeller, so I can go from the current prop that I have and swap it to that one. So different types of propeller, and the aircraft will respond differently based on the propeller that I've got. In fact, I can completely override the performance of this aircraft on every level by adding or removing flap seals, fairings, different types of propeller, different types of oil, batteries, tires, spark plugs. The variations are phenomenal. And then you also have this. So it's saying, from my last flight, by the way, this is a young aircraft, it's only 1.2 hours on it. I actually wrecked the previous one and reset everything. But anyway, some plugs were failed, try leaning out during ground op. So it's giving me advice here about how better to take care of this aircraft when I'm on the ground. I need to lean it more than I did. I actually thought I leaned it pretty well, but okay, then I'll do that. I can overhaul, fix everything, make sure everything is good as new. Now we're at 0 hours. Everything is good. That's kind of cool. This is where it starts to get very interesting, though. They have designed this, and they're very open about it. They've designed this for people who are learning to fly. This is a full, they want it to be fully accurate Cessna 172 for people that are actually in the real world learning to fly a Cessna 172. And one of the things that they have added to accommodate student pilots is the walk around, the pre-flight checks. Now, I have problems with this. It doesn't like EZDoc, and the way I'm moving my camera right here is the EZDoc camera system. The pre-flight checklist thing does not like EZDoc at all. It's probably not going to work. So I'm actually going to try here and turn EZDoc off very quickly. So global disable, EZDoc. Now, if I press Shift 8, here we go. So now we got the pre-flight inspection, and I can click, I should be able to click on any one of these points and start walking around the aircraft. So I can start here, for example. Aha, it does seem to be working. So now this is an interactive pre-flight inspection of a Cessna 172, and it will move me around each part of the aircraft, and I can actually do the checks. So if I want to check how my flaps are working, how my control surfaces are working, yeah, there we go. It's not working already. That's what I was saying. It's an EZDoc thing. It doesn't like EZDoc too much, but if you don't have EZDoc, you should be just fine. I'm not sure why I'm not, but anyway, you can move the control surfaces and check them. You get pictures up here to tell you what you're supposed to be looking for on these various linkages as well. We'll move around to the end of the wing here. You can already see it's a little bit off in terms of its positioning. And again, these are the things I need to be looking at. Now, the cool bit is you can actually go and look. One of the things we normally do when we pre-flight these aircraft is we check the fuel levels. I can do that here. So just click on that. Okay, that's the fuel level. It's not bad. It's good. We got some fuel in there, but we can also check for contaminants. I think that is, now it's hard to figure out where they've got it on this interactive list. Here it is, not. Here we go. So actually you can't see very much at all. So I'm going to turn EZDoc back on, and I'll leave that in there to show you the trouble I'm having. But yeah, if you have EZDoc, you have issues working with this system. You can get around it a little bit, you know, kind of get EZDoc to interject a little bit. But normally what you would do under the wings, there is a drain point underneath each wing. In the real world, you will put a bottle up there with a drain plug on it up there. You'll drain the fuel and you'll look for contaminants. We can do that here. So my fuel is clean. There are no contaminants. The more you fly this aircraft and maybe treat it badly, maybe don't treat it very well, you're going to start seeing contaminants in there and you'll see this change. So the pre-flight that you've got here is not only accurate in terms of where you're supposed to be on the aircraft at any point in time, although it doesn't like EZDoc, it's actually accurate in terms of the things that you're checking and the things that you're measuring. So that's kind of cool. Look, all these photos of real things you need to be looking at, where they are on the aircraft. And A2A have said that if you are learning to fly the aircraft or you're planning to learn to fly Cessna 172, you could use this pre-flight inspection system to get familiar with the pre-flight inspection system before you even get anywhere near the aircraft. That's what they're hoping for. But it is very, very comprehensive. First time we've actually seen this in a simulated aircraft, and for that alone, it's pretty awesome. Let's go into the cockpit. I'm going to turn my menus off here. Cockpit's pretty nice. Now, it's late in the afternoon here. We're at Orcas Island. This is Orbex Orcas Island, by the way. It's the scenery. A little bit late, so the light is fading a bit. But hopefully you can see this. They've done a great job in terms of modeling, as A2A always do. 3D dials everywhere. Everything is very, very smooth as well. And again, looking at the AccuSim side of this, this is where it gets really, really cool. When you're seeing the fuel flow needle change, it is changing because the simulated fuel is flowing at a different speed. It's not just a number that's being displayed to approximate what the aircraft's doing. It really is measuring the simulated fuel flow. Same on EGT over here, same on the fuel quantities, and of course oil pressure, oil temp, and all that good stuff. That is very, very important. Helps you manage the aircraft more than I think I've ever seen in any other aircraft. Got built-in FSX GPS here. You can replace that if you have the Reality Project's GPS. You can drop that in. Radios down here, normal set of radios, ADF, transponder, and an autopilot as well. Very simple autopilot, which most people will never use if they're treating this aircraft correctly. You'll be doing everything manually unless you're going to be doing long cross-country stuff, at which point you might want to use the autopilot. Let me go ahead and start this up, and you're going to see how phenomenal this is. This particular aircraft has been sat at Orcas here for the afternoon, so it's been sitting for about 4 hours. So it's not warm, but it's not, what's the word, it's not been neglected for months on end, so it should start pretty well. What we're going to do, it's a fuel injected engine. So the way that we prime this engine is we're going to turn the master switches on down here. In fact, let me change my view so you can see these a little bit better. There we go. So master switches are on. We're going to turn the fuel pump on, and we're going to adjust the mixture, and we're going to look for fuel flow to change. It won't change dramatically. You'll see a very, very, very tiny difference, and we'll leave it there for about 4 or 5 seconds. Alright, now we're going to cut off on the mixture, turn that fuel pump off. Did you hear the pump change? Because we went cut off on the mixture, the pump wasn't actually moving fluid, so you hear the tone of it change. That's kind of a neat touch as well. So that's all done. What we can actually go ahead and do right now is actually try and start the engine. So we're going to put the beacon on. Now I've got a Cytec Cessna panel here, so I'm going to use that rather than the key down here. But what I'm going to do is just twist this up. So it's on both now. I'm going to go onto the starter. In fact, let me put it on the main view once again. We'll try and turn this engine over because it is a full simulation of a combustion engine in a Cessna. It might not start first time. Like I said, now we have to wait about 10 seconds. You need to use the real world practices on this aircraft, otherwise you are going to break the virtual one. It's kind of nice. Right, let's try once again. Now the reason it's not starting is because there's no fuel going into the engine. I haven't even opened the throttle a bit. Let's try it now. So we're going to open the throttle about 1/4 of an inch. About there. Now let's try it. Oh, it's getting tempting. 3 attempts to start it and a failure. Normally at this point we would wait about 10 minutes and then try again. We're actually not going to do that. We're going to keep going just for the purposes of the video. It will start. Oh, there we go. Now I'm gently increasing mixture lever all the way up to full rich. Nice. Bit of smoke from the engine there. Quite normal. Engine is now running. We're going to bring the RPM up a little bit to about 1200. And we're going to lean this on the ground. So the way that we lean this on the ground, we're going to look at the RPM on the ground. I'm going to start leaning the mixture and watch for this to rise. So very, very gently leaning it. You can see that needle bouncing around a little bit now. Now it's starting to fall. That is about as lean as I can go. So now I'm going to bring back the throttle and we're going to idle at around about 1,000. Alright. Let's run through some other tests here. The aircraft does come with an extremely comprehensive manual. It also details not only how to pre-flight the Cessna, or the checklist of the Cessna, the standard and the emergency procedures of the Cessna, but also A2A's philosophy behind the aircraft. So how they modeled everything, what exactly they modeled, is pretty cool. Need to set in the barometric here. I actually don't know it, but I do know the altitude of this runway right here is about 20 or 30 feet. So we'll do that. Okay, let's run up the test on the lights, on the annunciator. It's probably not going to work. Oh, it is. There we go. Everything's flashing just the way it should. I haven't turned the avionics master switch on yet. I don't really need to. It's warning me about pitch trim. We'll set that in a second. Okay, so let's turn on the avionics master at this point. Good. Everything's looking good, so let's go and check all our dials. So fuel quantities, a little bit more fuel on the right than the left. That's okay. Fuel flow is looking good. Our temperature is still very, very low here, EGT. Our oil pressure is in the green. Oil temperature is rising. Vacuum is just about in the green. Amps is good. We haven't put a lot of load on that yet, but we're going to, just to test that out. So I actually should have done this with the avionics off, but anyway, let's put the landing lights on, taxi lights on. There you go, you see the amp needle twitch a little bit there. Let's now turn the master switch off. Good, that's expected behavior, because the engine is running. This will now power up again, which is why I should have done that before I turned the avionics on. Let's turn those lights back off again, so we're all good there. We are pretty much good to go at this point. Let's put one stage of flap out there. And we will taxi out and take off, and I will show you what this is like to fly. And it is phenomenal. Now bear in mind, as I said, A2A have tried to make this an accurate simulation of a Cessna 172 for training purposes. So this simulated aircraft needs to do everything the real aircraft does. Now with that said, there are some issues. It is a little bit twitchy on the ground. It tends to pick up speed a little bit faster than I think a real Cessna does. Let me just adjust track IR here a little bit. Tends to pick up speed and kind of run away with you a little bit while taxiing. You need to be aware of that. It did do it a lot worse, and they did have some issues with sensitivity of controls, which have been fixed with a recent patch. So overall, I'm quite happy with it. Just need to be aware. So I'm going to release the brakes right now. I'm going to put our taxi lights on. I'm going to use my SciTech panel here to do that. By the way, if you have a SciTech panel, it is not fully compatible with that panel. Some things don't work as you would expect them to. It's a bit of a pain. There we go, starting to run away with us now. For no reason, just kind of breaks away on the speed. Now, I gotta remember. Alright, so let's taxi out to our runway. Just like in the real Cessna, you tend to use touches on the left or right brakes to turn it more than you do a rudder. So a little bit of differential braking. When we get to the hold point here, we'll do a run up. Just make sure everything is good there. I am actually idling a little too low. I am likely to foul the plugs, but as I said, the aircraft has a tendency to run away with you. And I don't really want this running away with me right now. Alright. So we're just going to pop this around here. A little bit more power. Good. Alright, so we're going to hold it about there. We will put the parking brake on. I'm going to go full rich on the mixture now, and we'll bring this up to about 1800 RPM. Make sure the engine does come up smoothly. Which it is. Alright, let's do a mag check. So again, using my panel, we're going to go bound to the left mag only. We're looking at the RPM drop. Good. Now we'll go down to the right mag only. It should be the same drop, which it is. We're all good. Let's bring back the RPM now. Alright, let's turn some lights on. Nav, strobe, landing, all on. Let's assume that we got clearance to take off. And away we go.